Hi guys, welcome to the Baseline. Thanks for joining me today. Hope you guys are having a great day. Today we're going to talk about the Diddy trial and everything that no one saw coming. Now, if I can, let me ask you guys something uncomfortable. What happens when the villain wins? Not because he's innocent, not because he's misunderstood, but because the law, like the actual technical, boring, by-the-book law, says you didn't quite cross the line far enough. Well, that seems to be what happened in the courtroom showdown that almost nobody thought would end this way. So Sean Diddy Combs, the music icon, the music mogul, the kingmaker, accused abuser, I don't know, accused, he looks pretty much like he was an abuser, but just walked away with a partial legal victory. And the most chilling part about it all is it doesn't mean he didn't do it, because clearly on the video it did. It means he couldn't be convicted for it. So let's try to break all of this down the best that we can. This case was supposed to be a slam dunk. You know, it had all these elements, right? It was high profile, it was emotional, they had video evidence, it was a celebrity, you know, a celebrity in the court of public opinion. And you know, it seemed like he was already sentenced long ago, right? So when the feds finally brought the charges, the racketeering, the sex, the trafficking, people thought, oh my God, this is over, he's done. But in the end, the most serious charges didn't stick. Why? Because this trial didn't hinge on vibes. It didn't care about tweets. It didn't care about public opinion. It cared about one thing, and that was legal definition. And that's what Diddy's defense team attacked like seasoned assassins. Now, hang on a moment, right? Because I'm not about to say something, or I am about to say something that sounds a little bit insane, right? There's a version of this case where the jury believes every survivor and still doesn't convict. So how is that even possible? Because keep listening, because this one legal argument seemed to change the entire trial. But first, let's talk about the move that flipped the court upside down. Now, let's call it the 76th time theory. Now, I want you to picture this. The defense attorney stands up calm, collected, and delivers the line that cracked open the prosecution's entire case. And this is basically what was said. He said, and I'm paraphrasing it for the most part, right? But he says, so 75 of his sexual encounters were just bad decisions, but encounter number 76, that's sex trafficking. So boom, the courtroom tilted, because whether you like the man or not, that argument hits. That's reasonable doubt. And that's how you dismantle a racketeering charge with one sentence. Now, don't get it twisted. The defense admitted he was violent, and they didn't try to paint Diddy as an innocent person. They owned it. He did terrible things. He did domestic violence, absolutely. But sex trafficking, that's a leap. And the jury bought it. Now, what is it about this? The loophole of the law, right? What was it? Like, why wasn't he charged for the actual violence? And that's a really great question, because, you know, it makes everybody confused. And because of something that makes every normal person's blood boil. And this is what it was. It was the statute of limitations. So yeah, there's an expiration date on some kinds of abuse, especially at the state level. So what do the feds do? They get creative. They end up pulling out RICO racketeering laws. Now, why did they do this? Because RICO is the duct tape of prosecution. You can stick anything to it. Old behavior, bring it in, past abuse, toss it in the file. Even stuff you couldn't legally charge anymore, if it shows a pattern, it can still be used as evidence. So, not a charge, right? It was just proof of character. That's why prosecutors love RICO. And that's why the defense hates it. Because suddenly, it's not just what you did, it's how many times you did it and how it looked. Now, here's the catch to it all. Even with all that, even with the kitchen sink thrown in, the prosecution still had to check every legal box for racketeering. And they didn't. So this brought up all kinds of stuff. And it makes the PR team, I don't know. But now here's something that did end up shocking everyone, right? This case had almost no media hype from the prosecution. Because that's weird, right? Because when the government went after Epstein, Maxwell, hedge fund people, they brought the PR squad. You know, they had press conferences, daily updates, those little leaks that weren't supposed to get out. And it was like CNN meets Law and Order, but not here. And why? Because this was strategic silence, right? See, Diddy has power. He has influence, money. And if prosecutors had said the wrong thing to the press, well, boom, mistrial, boom, appeal. And the prosecution team was all women. They were deliberate, serious, and surgical. They didn't want to win the internet. They wanted to win the verdict. And they knew that meant keeping quiet, keeping clean, and letting the evidence talk, which I think is the admirable way to go. But comes Diddy's defense team, the new dream team, right? And oh man, these defense lawyers, they went full Avengers mode, right? We're talking Brian Steele, Young Thugs guy, Mark, whoever, and I don't know, Nicole Westmoreland, very lethal, right? Tenny Garagos, the daughter of Mark Garagos, and no slouch herself, right? These were defense lawyers. They were closers. They didn't even call witnesses. They just cross-examined the HELL out of the government's case. And man, it really worked. These attorneys were good. They painted Diddy as a monster, because he is, but not a federal monster. I don't know, not this law's monster. They just created just enough doubt, just enough confusion to break the prosecution's momentum. Now, he's still a monster though, right? So now here's where I think the public may have lost its mind, and probably rightfully so. I mean, he is a monster. He's a predator. The videos, the stories, how can this guy walk? And here is the hurtful, the brutal truth. Being a monster is not in itself a crime. Like, you can be abusive, you can be controlling, you can be everything society hates, and still walk free if the law says technically not guilty. And that's what happened here. Diddy wasn't cleared because he was good. He was cleared because the charges, these specific charges, didn't land. And that should scare us, because it means we've built a system where legal accountability and moral justice are two different languages in a way. Now, the victims still exist. So let's wrap up this way by letting me say this as clearly as I can. There are victims. Some of them testified, some didn't. Some were named, some were not. But their pain is very real. And even if the court couldn't convict, it doesn't erase what happened to them. That's the part no one wants to really acknowledge, right? You can survive a hell and still never see justice. And that's why this trial matters, not because of Diddy's verdict, but because it exposes the gap between what we feel is right and what we can actually prove. So here's the twist to it all. None of this really matters unless we ask one terrifying question. What happens when everybody knows someone is dangerous, but no law can touch them. And that's what we're going to try to unpack as we do following episodes to all this stuff. When power outruns the law, we'll do something that way, right? Because it's not just about Diddy. It's about corporate executives. It's about politicians. It could even be about your boss. And if you've ever felt like the system was designed to protect power, not people, we need to see what's next. So thank you guys so much for joining me and watching the Baseline. I really appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you on the next round. All right, cheers, everybody.